What was your I'm not even mad? I'm impressed moment. Story 1. I made a batch of brownies regular not pot and told my stone friend he could have one brownie. He ate the entire batch. His reasoning, I hadn't cut into smaller squares yet. So technically, it was just one giant brownie and I said he could have one. Story 2. My son was a late talker. He wouldn't even say mama. Then one day, he's just shy of 2, and he drops a SpongeBob bar we just grabbed from the ice cream truck. He looks at it, throws his hands up, and nonchalantly says, "Fuck, man, couldn't even be mad." That's the story of my kid's first words. I tell family it was mama, which came shortly after. Story 3. Went to a club on a Saturday night, and the only parking they offered was 20 valet. It was also 20 per person to get in, so I refused a valet park in an empty business park next door. It was Saturday night. No one was there, and a ton of other people had the same idea. I would wager 200 other cars. My friend commented on how we might get towed. I said they can't possibly tow all of us, but they did. When we all came out to the business park, completely void of cars, all I could do was laugh. Story 4. I had a waitress that completely sucked at her job. Ignored our table for almost 20 minutes, forgot our menus, drinks, and orders, and was generally uninterested in serving. I requested her to bring a rag with her to wipe down the table we were sitting at. Asked twice when she forgot the first time. When she did wipe down the table, she expertly wiped all the table directly into my purse sitting on the chair next to me. I could only stare, impressed by the level of she just brought to our encounter. My cat was doing one of his several times nightly dash through the house and stop and meow at random, only to begin running around back crazy again routines when I was brushing my teeth. I have a low medicine cabinet thing with a mirror and lights on it, and a small ledge on the top only about 7 feet up. My bathroom is very narrow, and there isn't much space between my back and the closet door. When I'm in front of the mirror, my cat dashed into the bathroom and clawed his way up the towels hanging up to dry, launched off them, and dug his claws into my back picture, kind of feline Prince of Persia. He then darted up my back and launched off my head into the ledge on the aforementioned medicine cabinet. Then he leapt off the cabinet into the open toilet bowl and almost bounced out. He noped so hard, this caused him to do a front flip into the tub, which had the curtains drawn. He clawed the ever-living out of them and dashed out of the bathroom, dripping wet with toilet water and a piece of shower curtain trailing behind him. All of this happened in about 2 seconds, and I ended up with scratches and puncture wounds in my back, scratches on my head, a soaking wet bathroom, hallway living room floor with toilet water, and useless broken shower curtains that now needed replacement. I was very impressed. Edit thanks for the gold whoever. First gold. Also, to you that hate to thank for the gold edits, I'm going to thank whoever gilded me cause they spent money on me. Deal with it. Story 5. I go to college in southern New York State. There isn't much around but farms. Last night, someone was drunkenly shouting out a theater window with a megaphone at about 2:30-300 am. Someone else opened a window and shouted back, "I am trying to right now. So if you don't shut the I'm going to come stick my in your banana bread." I want to be mad that I was woken up, but at the same time, I'm really glad I got to hear that exchange. Edit in and M are right next door. On the last stretch of a road trip around the West Coast, we let our slightly inept friend drive while the rest of us slept. It was a Sunday night, and most of us had to be at work by Monday morning. We went to sleep in middle of Idaho. We're coming from Vegas and going home to Seattle. When we woke up the next morning, our friend was still driving, and according to our calculations, we should have been only an hour or so away from Seattle. So you can see why we were shocked to find out that we were in northern Colorado, the complete opposite direction of the path we had been heading. None of us were even that mad. We were actually impressed how our friend could mess up so bad in this day of age with clearly marked road signs and phone GPS. We all called in sick to work and enjoyed another day and a half of road trip adventures. Story 6. This morning, when I took my boyfriend to the airport, got him checked in, and through security an hour early, he still missed his flight by not going into the terminal. Story 7. When I was about 12, my dog ate Atlas Shrugged, the whole book, 1,000 pages of tree pulp. I was halfway through it, and I think that glorious hound saved my childhood. Story 8. I accidentally bonked my cat on the head one night. He freaked out and took off. 20 minutes later, I had totally forgotten about it. And that's when he struck. He savaged my ankle for a very vicious 10-second attack, then just stalked off. I wasn't even mad. I was impressed that he had the wherewithal to hide out and wait till my guard was down before coming for payback. Story 9. 2 years ago, I'm sitting on my couch watching TV and drinking a beer. My 11-month-old son comes in with a handful of dinner, making eye contact the whole time. He stands there a bit, looking at me. He then proceeds, while keeping eye contact, to purposely throw the handful of food on the carpet. I tell him no, and put my beer down on the end table and start cleaning up the mess. He immediately bolts towards the beer bottle, grabs it, and runs off with it. The only person to pull off a beer bandit on me was a baby. Story 10. When my very drunk youngest brother extinguished a campfire at the end of the night by on it. I wanted to be mad, but honestly I was kind of impressed, since it wasn't exactly a tiny fire. Story 11. My parents came down to visit me in my first year of college. They wanted to check out my long-term girlfriend's room. So we went up to her floor of the dorm, and they checked it out. Her roommate was there, and we had a nice chat, and then we left to go to supper. My now ex-girlfriend realizes about halfway down the stairs that she forgot her wallet, so we all head back up to grab it. When we opened the door, we like counted my parents found her roommate and her boyfriend previously not there furiously on the bed. We were literally gone a little over a minute. Story 12. My fat beagle dog managed to hork down an entire Papa John's breadstick that was sitting on the coffee table in the 2 or 3 seconds it took my brother to walk over there. It was his, so I was definitely more impressed than upset. Story 13. I parked my car behind my work one night just to run and grab something I forgot. I got distracted and started talking to a coworker for maybe 5 minutes at most, and when I returned outside to leave, every window was smashed on my car and my stereo had been stolen. Story 14. Once at a casual get-together, I cracked open a beer right as a couple friends were going to leave. One of them was too drunk to tie her shoes, so I put my beer down and tied her shoes for her real quick, 10 seconds max. When I turned around to grab my beer, it was completely empty, and one of my other friends, just in this wise smirk on her face. Not even mad, brah. That was an impressive piece of stealth chugging. Story 15. When I was working at Subway, a guy came in 2 minutes before close and ate at the store, so I had to hang around until he was gone. However, he ordered the big Philly cheesesteak with double meat, on a foot long. That's 2 pounds of meat. He ate the whole thing. It was incredible. Story 16. When my 2-year-old at the time managed to get my chocolate bar down from on top of the fridge in the time it took me to go pee, I'm convinced he's part monkey. Story 17. Last winter, we went to Hawaii for vacation. While we were snorkeling, my decided to throw all the fish food right where I was, so all the fish swarmed me. I couldn't even be mad, because had I thought of it first, I would have done it to him. Story 18. Cat got locked out of the bathroom that had the litter box in it one night. So morning comes, and he starts meowing up a storm at my girlfriend and I asleep in bed. The cat, in distress at his predicament, climbs up into bed, and instead of continuing to be ignored, simply sits on my girlfriend, owner of cat, in bed, and lets loose the golden showers. He managed to completely cover her, whereas I escaped with nary a drop. I picked the cat up and waddled him to the litter box, cat urination unpaused all the while. Laid him in the box and reveled in the fact that the cat had to do what he just did on the floor. Going for mama, tango down, my son once tried to fake his own death. He got a bottle of ketchup and wrote "go away" on the pavement in the alley behind our house. Story 19. My son takes off his diaper all the time and ends up peeing on my floor, so I thought I'd overcome this by always making sure he was fully dressed, no more naked time with just diaper. Well, I put him in footsie pajamas with a zipper, and somehow he managed to take off his diaper and wiggle it down one leg with the entire outfit still on, and then proceeded to sit on my lap and pee on me. Story 20. When my 10-year-old son got in big trouble for what he yelled while disembarking the bus after a school field trip. People, this will go more quickly if we all push. I still find it funny. Story 21. Found my cat with his giant head stuck in my wine glass, sticking out his tongue, trying to lap it up. Ed had also caught him rubbing his face and body against my hairbrush after knocking it onto the floor. He likes being brushed and figure out how to do it himself. Story 22. In 9th grade, my friend threw a playing card at me. It slit the back of my palm open. He made me show it to everyone so he could brag that he was basically Gambit. Story 23. When I was 8, I was utterly shy at football. A friend and I were playing in the garden when I took a shot at the goal between 2 jumpers on the floor and had the ball go through the window immediately behind. My dad was amazed that I actually hit the ball on target and wasn't mad that the garage window got broken. Story 24. I drove myself and my roommates to the liquor store to pick up some beer for the night, and one of my roommates managed to drink my entire 6-pack in the back seat without me noticing on the 10-minute ride home. Story 25. My tiny, timid run of a kitten stole a chop off my plate and ate about half of it when I was away from the dinner table. It weighed nearly as much as he did. Story 26. I used a nanny, and one night, as I was cooking dinner, the 3-year-old kept getting in the way trying to help AK make messes, so I told her to go play as the parents were getting home soon, and I wanted to be almost done when they got home. Anyway, it got eerily quiet in the house. If you have children, you know this lack of noise, so I want to go find her. She's sitting in the middle of the living room looking at a book. Fine, I go back to dinner. Parents get home, we have dinner. After dinner, family disperses to watch TV, and such. TV won't turn on. Computer mouse isn't working. 7-year-old's handheld isn't working. 3-year-old mad at me, went to anything in the house that had batteries and flipped them around so they didn't work. She had just learned that batteries have a right and wrong way. Because of a toy. Couldn't be mad, was genius. She would have gotten away with it too if she hadn't come clean because she wanted credit. Story 27. When I was younger, my sister was getting in huge trouble for something. I don't remember what, but I knew here was grass, although she thought that whatever she did was hilarious. She had this look on her face like, ha ha ha, I did that. And Mom was not happy. As she was being yelled at, my mom could tell she was smiling and basically mocking her. So my mom screamed, "You better wipe that smirk off your face right now." Without missing a beat, she walked over to the tissue box and wiped her face. Turns out she didn't know what a smirk was and figured that Mom honestly wanted her to wipe her face with something. We all lost it and could no longer be mad at her. I will never get over how much trouble she got out of her action. Story 28. I teach English in South Korea. One day, I was with a class of 6th graders. One student in this particular class had some behavioral problems, never brought his book or a pencil, and rarely participated in class. It wasn't uncommon for him to stand up in the middle of class, mouth off at another student in Korean, of course, and then storm out of the room. This was just one of his many unfavorable behaviors. Needless to say, he wasn't one of my favorites. One day, I heard him arguing with another student. Finally, he stands up and says, "Fuck your face." I should have been mad, but he cursed at such an advanced level I was speechless. Story 29. So I used to tutor this little boy 7 years old with psychotic tendencies. In math, he was in a special needs class at the community center I worked in, but he didn't have any substantial learning difficulties except math and being violent at times, but not really worse than any other kid who hated math. Anyway, he really didn't like math. So one day I'm helping him with a math problem, and he's being really defiant. He punches me in the arm. It didn't really hurt, but it was very forceful. This was the first time he ever got physical with me. I decided that the best course of immediate action was to let him chill out. So I sternly told him that when he was ready to do his homework, then we would talk. Basically, we didn't communicate for like 5 minutes until he quietly says, "Gene grown?" And I say, "Yes." I look over and he looks pretty calm. And he says, "I had an accident." I respond, "What kind of accident?" This is when he slowly picks up 2 fingers, signaling that he had a number 2 accident. So I asked, "Do you want to walk you to the bath or have a change of clothes?" "Well, wow, you sure prepared for this." So anyway, I walk him to the bathroom. I wait outside while he changes and I tell my supervisor. Turns out he used his pants at least once a week meanwhile. This was after I've been working there for a month. Okay, great. So we go back to the classroom and he's all changed, but then 45 minutes later, he craps his pants again. We get him some backup shorts that the community center had. Okay, cool. Few kid has clean pants. Not more than an hour later, I kid you not, he shits his pants again. So without eating, this kid shits his pants 3 times in less than 3 hours. At that point, I admit I was impressed. This kid's shitting ability far surpassed my own. Mind you, this was not like a little bit of diarrhea. This was like 3 separate full-on explosions. TLDR, 7-year-old his pants 3 times in less than 3 hours without eating from getting angry, but then calming down after said shits. Story 30. I was feeding ducks. I like holding the bread just out of what I think their reach is and having them jump for it. They're pretty young and don't have full wings yet, so they sort of flap and jump and grab at the bread. Some of them get it. It's fun for me, and the ducks get fed. I decided to hold the bread really high just to watch them jump. This one duck is looking at it, and then be like, "Fuck you, watch this jump. I'ma snag that bread and make you watch me eat it." And I'm like, "Bitch, duck can't jump this high." So the duck jumps really high. Not only does he jump high enough to grab the bread, he jumps high enough to grab my finger. Now, I don't know how many people know this, but there's a little notch in the underside of a duck's upper beak inside its mouth. It just so happens that if a duck clamps hard enough, he can embed that notch into your finger. When said duck jumps higher than anticipated in the air and clamps onto your finger, it may or may not take a couple of layers of skin with it. So as this duck is sliding down my finger to get to the bread at the end of it, I'm sort of in awe at the fact that this duck not only jumped way higher than I thought it could, but it was also giving me a really good you for making me do this. The duck reaches the end, and I drop the bread on the ground where all the other ducks start eating it. As for the duck that jumped for it, I could see the skin from my finger hanging from his mouth. I had deserved this, but damn it, I gave it the rest of the bread I had. He earned it. TLDR, duck's gravity finger. Story 31. I teach 4-year-olds. One of my kids knocked over his block structure and said, "Damn it," not super loud, but loud enough for me to hear. And when I sat down to talk about the words he used, he really calmly said, when I'm by myself and I get mad or frustrated, I say it. Story 32. When my daughter was in 11th grade, we were the target of an old-fashioned TPing. Kids nowadays ring the doorbell as they drive off. So I wake with a small cardiac event as I make my way to the front door at 3 a.m. Looking through the window, I try to understand why the trees were blurry. I slowly realize what has happened. It looks like the 25-foot trees have been dipped in marshmallow fluff. The next day, we counted 20 TP package wrappers, 24 rolls per package. Those little unleashed 480 rolls of toilet paper on us in maybe 2 hours. Impressive logistics and planning. Story 33, I work at a grooming salon, and a 10 pounds Maltese crapped out what had to be half its weight in one shitting. I literally just blurted at the dog, I'm not even mad. Story 34, my dad's kind of crazy. I don't live with him anymore, but when I did, he pulled this stupid stunt where he locked my brother and my mother in our laundry room for some reason that I don't remember. My brother tends to be very reckless when he's angry, and instead of asking me who was inside at the time to unlock the door, he punched straight through the glass window panels on the top and unlocked it. I would be mad at his recklessness, but I was pretty impressed he still has the scar from it and likes to show it off. Story 35, I was working settings up for a launch party for a new perfume. When we stopped for morning tea, I went out and bought a bagel, but I only ate half of it. When we broke for lunch, I saw it still sitting there and figured I might as well finish it while I was walking to where we were all going for lunch. Went to scoop it up on the way through, except it didn't move. Someone had put a 3-inch drywall screw through my bagel. I laughed out loud, but no one would admit to it. Story 36, I tripped and fell, and while lying on the floor, my cat, Clothespaw bitch, slapped me across the face. My falling apparently disturbed his nap. I tripped trying not to bother him. No claws at all. Totally impressed by his restraint. Story 37, little late, but I just got home with a McDonald's cheeseburger, placed the bag on my bed, went to use the restroom. Got back, my dog ate the burger, took it out of the bag, and unwrapped it, but left the 2 pickles right next to each other on the wrapper, seemingly untouched. Story 38, my dog ate an entire bag of dog food. He swelled up from the amount of food, and I could see he was really not well. On the way to the vet's, he saw a crust of bread on the pavement, and lunged for it. In his swollen state, he fell over, still managed to eat the bread. Story 39, someone threw a large paper airplane from the back of a lecture hall right when I raised my hand to answer a question. It landed the small space between my glasses and my face. I was too stunned to remember what my question was. Story 40, I'm going through this moment now. My son just turned 4 a few days ago. He is the sweetest little boy in the world, but he's just like me. When I was a kid, extremely determined. By 14 months, he had learned to scale the stools and get into the kitchen cabinets. It's a constant battle, and sometimes frustrating to divert his attention. I was flying home tonight after a week at a client site when I get a Hangouts message on the plane from my wife asking me to call immediately. I couldn't because plane Wi-Fi doesn't have the bandwidth to support a call. So she tells me she's taking my son to the ER. He has fallen off the refrigerator. When I land half an hour later, I find out they're in an ambulance as he turned non-responsive. I get to the hospital just as the ambulance arrives. The airport is much closer to the hospital than our home. Then I learn the story. My son, an hour after being put to bed and while my wife was in the upstairs bathroom, decided he wanted leftover birthday cake, which happened to be on top of the fridge. Next to the fridge is a bookshelf, which we use for cookbooks and Le Creuset stuff. Turns out he snuck out of the room, grabbed a ceramic plate, scaled the bookshelf, opened the cake box, transferred a piece of cake to the plate, and ate it at altitude. My wife heard noises and went downstairs thinking the dog was up to something, and on the way downstairs heard the fall. We get tired sometimes of the lengths to which he'll go when he's focused on something, but in this case I'm just impressed, especially since he cared to play it up with him. The x-rays just came back fine, and we're waiting on the CT scan results. Update, he's A-okay. Not much sleep last night, though. Story 41, I was on a basic course in winter survival 2 years ago. One morning we were tasked to ski up a mountain about 500 m and come back down as fast as possible. It took 40 minutes to ski to the top, and I was among the first to get there. But on the top, one guy decided to take off his skis because it's too slow, and he ran 7 kilometers down the mountain in heavy leather boots, about 50 centimeters of snow, and with skis on his shoulder in 30 minutes. Viking. Story 42, when my idiot dog, who is a hunting breed but has never been trained for it, cut a 3 times. My dad has owned hunting dogs for decades, and this is the only one who's ever managed it. Story 43, we had those huge Costco-sized packages of toilet paper, and my son, about 4 at the time, took all the rolls out of the plastic wrappers and built himself a fort in his room. Story 44, probably when I was lying down on the top of a half-pipe, because I can't skate 4, and my friend goes from the other end of the ramp, skates up the half-pipe, does one of those air flip things where you turn around in the air and goes back down. No idea what those are called. As he's making his way back down from the air, he reaches out, punches me and skates off. Story 45, when I played tennis in high school, an older guy would come around to practice with us, and he would bring his son who had Down syndrome with him. His child was not high-functioning, and while he babbled from time to time, he never said a word. except for one day when I made a bad shot and he yelled out. It was the only time I ever heard him talk. Bravo, Down syndrome child. Bravo. I was 14 and my dad's single father went to a party and stayed out all night. The next morning, I wake up at 6 a.m. for a coffee and donut run and saw his truck wasn't in the driveway. I shrugged, thinking he stayed at the party or crashed at my uncle's. Then as I walked to the front yard, I noticed the tire tracks. I looked down at them, followed their trail right to the front lawn, where my dad's truck is parked with the driver's side door wide open. I arched a brow, looked around, then walked to the truck and leaned in. There's my dad passed out on the steering wheel. I stare for a couple minutes, and in the most deadpan voice I say, "Nice," before walking to Tim Hortons. I come back maybe 20 minutes later, and my dad is giggling like a schoolgirl and backing his truck into the driveway. Before retreating into his man cave of a garage and sleeping it off for 5 hours, he's still surprised I didn't yell at him or freak out. I just told him that I was impressed that he wasn't killed, pulled over, and even more so, that he even knew where our house was. My uncle later told me my dad could barely stand when he left the party. Edit there, I fix it. Are you grammar Nazi troll satisfied? Jeez. Story 46. This guy I was dating for about 6 months or so was from Ireland. He would tell me and show me pictures of the tiny town he was from and how much he missed his home and how badly he wanted to take me to Ireland one day. Every time he spoke, my panties were wet because Irish accents are my weakness, and he was hot. Turns out one day, I find out he is from the next town over. He had never even been out of the state we were in. I wasn't even mad. I was impressed because he kept it up when he was high, drunk, during everything. I asked him why he lied, and he said he was nervous to approach me because I was his dream girl and girls like accents. True, but he would have got it anyway. He was good. In War Thunder, an online flight sim, me and some teammates were chasing a guy, and I shot off his tail, but somehow he flipped around and shot a rocket which hit me, and the blast knocked out one other teammate and really messed up the other. Luck was on his side, and he timed it just right. Story 47. At my job, there is a chipmunk who lives in the room I work in. The doors to the outside are always open. Occasionally, we would leave bits of food on the floor for him, eventually getting to the point where he would eat out of our hands. On one morning, I was there by myself, enjoying the nice muffin left for me from the previous closing shift when I had to leave my desk to attend to work things. As I enter the room, which has my desk right next to the door, I hear the tiny footsteps of the chipmunk escaping and bite marks on the wrong half of my muffin. Fast forward 2 hours, and I see the chipmunk has dragged my Dunkin' Donuts bag with a bagel and candy bar inside into the center of the doorway, and he has eaten through the bag, placed the candy bar off to the side for later, chewed through the bagel wrapping, and took a few bites of my bagel. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, I suppose. TLDR, a chipmunk at work ate both my delicious breakfast selections. Story 48. When my son was just a couple weeks old, he, shall we say, defecated in a projectile fashion. The stream shot out over the changing table across where we were setting up his crib. He was sleeping in the master bedroom at the time and splattered against something sitting against the wall. I even used the exact phrase, "am not even mad." I'm impressed. Story 49. I was foot chasing a peeper in a campground. Am old and slow. I still tried. But when he went parkour and leaped onto a trash can and then hopped off the can top over the chain link, I was just so impressed I gave up. Story 50. My dog Hank was dealing with severe separation anxiety and opened up one door, chewed another before getting it open, tried to chew through our bedroom door, gave up, and just pushed until he cracked the door frame. Once he was in, he peed all over the bed and pillows. I couldn't even be mad. He was so terrified and stressed out. I gave him some Xanax and held him until he passed out, called the wife and told her to stay at her friend's so I could do the laundry and the mattress and bedding. Hank and his shame. Story 51. This is going to get buried, but here goes. I work in a strip club, and we did a remodel and got all the little 19 flat panel TVs everywhere. They were in the bathrooms, the VIP, the booths, just everywhere. One day, one of the TVs in the men's bathrooms just straight up went missing. Our bouncer informs the owner that somehow someone got that out of the club without anyone noticing. The owner flips his and starts meticulously going over the tapes, watching each and every living thing that walked in or out of that bathroom. He doesn't find anything for a while. Then he starts laughing like a crazy madman. A bunch of us go to the office to see what's going on, and he's got tears streaming down his face. He also now has a bunch of confused strippers standing there. I know who did it. He says after he can breathe, he starts showing us what he found. It's fall in North America, and everyone is wearing coats. A certain guy is sitting near the bathroom by the stage and has to pee an awful lot. He tips a few ladies nurses a soda and goes to the John one final time before disappearing out into the world with the TV from the men's room under his coat. Each time he went to the bathroom, he unscrewed a bolt or something and then just made off with it like he was Thomas Crown. The owner is shaking his head just watching the tapes. And he says, "I can't even be angry. That was he did. That's what insurance is for." When I was 13, I had a husky, and one day my dad was cooking a big pot, probably a 12 to 14-inch pot of meat on the stove. Anyways, me and my cousin were outside playing and came back a little while later, and as I walked through the kitchen, I saw a pot on the floor. I didn't think much of it and just picked it up and put it on the counter. My dad had apparently went upstairs for a while the meat cooked and came down to check on it. From the family room, I hear him yelling, "Where's my meat? Where's my meat?" I run to the kitchen, and he's holding the big pot that ID picked off the floor earlier. I'm a vegetarian, so he knew I didn't eat it. So he starts yelling at my cousin, but I defend him because we were both outside. So we're all just standing there like, WTF? And then I'm like, "Where's Chico, my husky?" Turns out my husky knocked the pot off the stove without burning himself, ate an entire pot of meat, even the bones, and liked the whole floor clean in the span of 20 minutes. I couldn't even be mad at him. To this day, I'm still baffled as to how he managed to do it. Story 52, when my daughter was about 5, I ordered a pizza and some hot wings. When the delivery guy showed up, I took the food and put it right inside the door on a small table, and then stepped outside to pay the driver. I was outside for maybe 3 minutes, and when I came inside, my daughter had eaten all 8 hot wings. Not just ate them, but the bones were picked dry and looked like they had been bleached by the desert sun. Her face and hands were completely covered in hot sauce, and she just looked at me and asked for water. Couldn't be mad. Story 53, when my boss kid, who is pretty much like a little sister to me, since I've known her for her entire life, came home from school with a behavior slip to be signed by her parents. They'd taken her to the state fair over the weekend and let her ride a roller coaster. She had so much fun that she tried to make her own roller coaster at school by dragging a tricycle up to the top of the slide with the intention of riding it down. That kid is going places, not college, but places. Story 54, I worked in Alaska as a tech with the state troopers. One day, we pulled over a frequent flyer because he went over the center line. We ran through the SFSDs, determined that he was drunk, and applied the breathalyzer. It read 517. Yup, the guy was almost 7x the legal limit and was close to having alcohol poisoning. We double-checked by a second breathalyzer and by a blood sample at the hospital. Just the fact that he was able to speak, stand, walk, and was almost able to drive was amazing. Story 55, on New Year's Eve 2013, I finished work and was supposed to go for a friend's party. As I walked toward my car in the parking lot, I noticed my front license plates were missing. The WTF moment came when I got up to my car and saw my passenger door, or rather when I didn't see my door. Someone had decided to steal my passenger door, both my license plates as well as my road tax license. That was all they took, just one door, 2 license plates, and 1 road tax license. Nobody saw anything. I was more amazed than mad at the whole situation. Ended up spending the first minutes of New Year's 2014 in a police station with the cops as dumbfounded and amazed as I am. Story 56, I got into a cat fight once with a girl who resorted to name-calling when she started to lose. I should have seen it coming. When I told her she was just name-calling, not actually arguing, she said that they were just descriptive words used to describe me. Don't I know adjectives are different than being a... Story 57, well, I did a poo so big today that it broke the school toilet. So there's that. Also, an older gentleman managed to flip his car in front of me going ridiculously fast on a gravel road. He flipped several times, then landed back on his tires. He drove away. The cops found him later that evening, and the only damages were to the side view mirrors. Right rear door, no injuries.